I'm going to play Singed for 10 hours to see how good he is. I mean, I see so many Singed players proxy every wave, run around doing tons of damage, all while being unkillable. So let's see how good he is in 10 hours. First, I decided to look up the most common build and runes for Singed, and here's what I found. You usually want Conquer as your primary rune, but this can be very flexible based on matchup. Your build usually consists of Demonic Embrace, Rylai's, and a mythic item. Then you either go for tanky items for more frontline or damage if you're really far ahead. The mythic items can also be really flexible with Rod of Ages, Riftmaker, Radiant Virtue, Liandry's, and Jokshow all being viable options. And as a final note, you don't need Grievous Wounds on Singed because your ult gives it to you on your poison. So to start, I decided to play on my Plat Smurf to learn how Singed worked. I died immediately, and not only did I die, but I did not even have my poison on. A little later, I do kill Gangplank, but it was probably one of the worst fights ever. Long story short, I didn't auto-attack Gangplank, so not only did it lose me damage, but it also taught me a valuable lesson. I learned that poison won't stack Conqueror on its own because it's not a separate ability each time, so you have to auto-attack in between to get Conqueror stacks. A little later, I run at Gangplank, flip him, and watch him slowly die to my poison. Then, Karthus and I dive Akali top and get a kill. A little later, I sadly died to Gangplank because I just didn't expect his damage. I could have flashed away and lived, but I just didn't expect his barrel to kill me. And that was basically the beginning of the end. Our Karthus started flaming everyone to just let him scale, and we slowly started losing fights until we lost the game. The next game was against another Gangplank, but I was a lot more prepared this time. Since Gangplank has a weak level 1, I used my poison to get level 2 fast and then flashed onto Gangplank to kill him.
Yes!
Sorry. A little later, I pushed Gangplank out of lane, and while trying to proxy, I died to Viego because I forgot the tower still hits me if Viego is poisoned. But it's fine, a little later I flipped Gangplank under the tower and killed him again. But in the end, we surrendered at 15 minutes because the game was 7-19. The next game, I was against an Illaoi, another top laner who was super weak early, so I used my poison to hit level 2 and killed her just like I did to the Gangplank last game. Later I kill her again by just running her down with my ult. Since my ult gives me Grievous Wounds, I knew there was no way she could out-sustain me in a fight. I then tried to force a fight at Rift Herald, which we were not in position to do, and I died while killing Echo, which I guess is worth. Then we fought at Dragon, and the enemy team surrendered because the score was 23-4. So after my first few games, I realized Singed might be harder than I thought. So after a few games, I went to YouTube to learn a few things about Singed. And if you search Singed on YouTube, only one name pops up. ManishCap1. And after watching a bunch of his videos, I learned a lot, but the main things were: 1. Always turn on your poison. Yes, even the best Singed players in the world sometimes forget to turn it on. 2. Proxy when the time is right. If you proxy too much, you can get ganked and die, but if you don't proxy at all, your laning phase is super weak. And 3. Pay attention to your mana. Turn off poison when you can because you are very mana hungry early. Well, time to plan my main. I started at Emerald 33 LP. Let's see how well I do. My first game was against a Gwen and well, I kind of inted. But look, I was ganked for my first 3 deaths, and my last death, I just randomly alt-tabbed for some reason. It's okay, I'm weak side, the rest of my team is doing a lot better. A little later, we destroyed the enemy team in a big team fight, and even though I didn't do too much, I got a couple of important flips that led to kills. Then we won another fight where I actually managed to chase down the enemy and kill not 1, but 2 enemies, and then get a tower after that. Then, out of nowhere, we lost one fight even though I killed the enemy ADC, and we lost the entire game out of nowhere. The next game went even worse. I was against another Gwen, and I basically inted again. I really have nothing to say about this game other than I probably should have been reported. The next game starts off with a super close fight top that we barely win. Then my jungler ganks again, and we kill Garen again, which puts me super far ahead. A little later, there was a big fight mid. It was all over the place, with kills everywhere, Soraka randomly disconnecting in the middle of it, and eventually I got a fadeaway kill with my poison. And after a couple of back and forth fights, it all came down to this final fight at Baron. I ulted, I flipped the A-Soul, I started running around doing tons of damage. Oh my god, my poison was not on. I mean, thank goodness my team carried this fight and won the game. But we will never talk about this fight ever again, okay? I'm serious, this never happened. These games made me realize how weak of a laner Singed is, but it also made me realize how great he is at setting up ganks if the jungler comes to help. Now, normally I do these segments in 2-hour groups, but this game was so crazy it needed its own hour. First of all, I was against one of my biggest counters, Kennen. But things actually went off to a pretty good start when Evelynn ganked and I got an early assist. Then she ganked again and got me another early assist. With that early lead, I was kind of just able to run down Kennen and kill him. But I stayed too long for plates and died to Kha'Zix, and uttered my famous last words. There's no way Kha'Zix carries this, right? Now, let's pause for a second. At this point, we were ahead 14-4, I was smashing one of my biggest counters, and my team scales pretty well. I truly thought this game was unlosable. Fast forward 10 minutes and the game was 23-17. All of a sudden I realized if I wanted to win this game, I was gonna have to carry the fuck out of this game. Later, I see an opening and start a huge fight mid because the enemy Vladimir was bot lane. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop my team from starting a 4v5 fight without me. And just 2 minutes later, we lost another big fight. And then our Evelynn tried to 1v4 instead of just helping me defend the base, so we lost. Psych! My team respawned and the enemy team overstayed, so when my ult came up, I ran at them. We aced the enemy team and we could finally end this miserable game. Until the enemy team respawned and we were the ones who overstayed. After fighting tooth and nail, the enemy team finally got Elder, killed my team, and won the game. Psych again! Senna and I held it down 2v3, and after the Evelynn came up, we managed to wipe the enemy team and it saved the game again. Then, my Evelynn decided to try and 1v5 the enemy team, but then she got out! Just to go back in and lose us the fucking game. Oh, and to make matters worse, Katarina tried to 1v4 for literally no reason. Somehow we managed to kill Kha'Zix, but it was still a 3v4, we had no turrets left, and no amount of anime protagonist energy was gonna save me from this one. But then, instead of ending the game, the enemy team just left? And while the enemy team was taking our jungle, Evelynn traded 1-for-1 with the enemy Zeri, and I knew this was our moment to end the game. I used my ult, flipped Soraka, and then I flipped Kennen. And even though the enemy team got Baron, it didn't matter. We fought the enemy 4v2 and finally managed to win the game. Holy shit, I'm gonna need a break after that one. Okay, so the next game started off kind of bad. I got hit by Shyvana's E right before Fiddlesticks ganked and barely died because of it. But then I baited Shyvana into chasing me and flipped her under tower to get my first kill. Then Fiddlesticks and I died trying to dive Shyvana, and right when it seemed like Master Yi was gonna get away, he actually died to Rift Herald, which was pretty funny. Anyway, most of this game, I was on Shyvana split push duty, which means I was keeping her from winning the game, while the rest of my team did the actual work. And while I was killing Shyvana for the 10th time or something, my team decided to just win the game. The next game was really stupid. It started with me getting 3-man dove. I thought my poison was in range for the Fiddlesticks assist, but no gold for me, I guess. Then Nunu came back again, but luckily I was able to ult and run away. Then he missed a snowball trying to dive me, which was pretty funny, but then they actually dove me for real and I died this time. And after 10 minutes, Nunu was still in my lane. Luckily, my mid and jungle decided to finally help out and we managed to kill them both. And for the rest of the game, I was on Sion split push duty. Honestly, it was probably for the best because I was super behind from my laning phase from hell. And we won, even though I did basically nothing. The next game was against another hard counter, Quinn. Luckily for me, she decided to try to dive at level 3 and just die. Then there was a 2v2 top where I managed to get 2 kills. Then I started a fight bot and shut down the enemy bot lane, and followed it up by barely winning a team fight 30 seconds later. A little later, we won a big fight at Rift Herald, and at this point I realized I was ridiculously tanky against their pretty much all AD team. Then it all came down to the last fight, a big Baron fight where Seraphine and MF completely missed their ults. And I was so exhausted dragging my team this far, I thought, fuck it, I'll do it myself. But you see, we didn't have to lose here. We could have just reset, but instead MF walked into melee range of the enemy team and my team tried to fight a 4v5. This was by far the most tilting game of this challenge and I was just happy to be out. And now we were on to the final games of the challenge, and it was time to finish strong. The first game started with Darius waiting in a bush, and it stopped me from being able to proxy. But a little later, I managed to trade 1-for-1 with Darius, which was worth because he missed a wave. I know my poison wasn't on when I flashed back in, but I got the kill, okay? I then tried to 1v1 Darius again because I thought the grievous wounds on my ult would allow me to kill him. I was wrong. But then out of nowhere, our Hecarim decided to 1v5 and die. The enemy team got Baron, and then they just pushed into our base and won the game. The next game started off pretty well. We barely won a 2v2 top lane, and the wave was pushing into me, so Nasus would lose CS. Then I hit 6 and ran at the enemy Nasus. He tried to flash away, but luckily Jarvan was there to clean up the kill. I then got ganked top and got both Nasus and Nocturne so low that Jarvan was able to clean up a double kill. But in the end, morale was super low after losing a big fight top lane, and we kinda just surrendered. It was just a huge mental boom, I guess. And finally, we were on to our final game, and it was against an Illaoi. I didn't even try to proxy this lane because I had a plan. Remember the beginning of this challenge when I hit level 2 first and killed Illaoi? Well, I did it again. Then we tried to gank Illaoi, and even though we killed her, Sejuani showed up and killed both of us. A little later, I flipped Illaoi under tower and barely killed her again. But that's when things started going downhill. I got dove by Sejuani, our team lost a fight at Rift Herald, and in the end we lost the game because we just didn't have the damage to kill Sejuani and Illaoi, so we kinda just lost the game. Honestly, every single one of these last 4 games was winnable, but a mix of tilt and unlucky fights caused me to lose 4 straight games to end this challenge. In the end, I went from Emerald 33 LP to Emerald 0 LP. So, is Singed a good champion? Honestly, I don't know. You see, Singed isn't like any other champion in League of Legends. Sometimes you feel unstoppable, proxy farming, running around in team fights and getting picks with your flip. But other times, the enemy just waits for you at level 1 so you can't proxy, and then all of a sudden, you're one of the weakest champions in the game. Anyway, hope you enjoy, and let me know what champion you want to see next.